Let's jump right into this. Today, we're unpacking a truly fascinating photo essay written back in February of 2002 by a photographer and professor named Won-Jin Choi. The essay is called Toward Myself, Toward the Landscape. Now, on the surface, this piece promises to be a deep dive into why we love taking travel photography, but as you'll see, it very quickly evolves into a profound look at human psychology, our deeply ingrained need for possession, and how those ancient instincts absolutely shape the way we experience major cultural events today.
So, let's start with a really simple yet surprisingly deep question. Why do we take photos when postcards exist? Seriously, think about your own habits for a second. You travel all the way to the Grand Canyon, or maybe the Eiffel Tower. Perfectly framed, beautifully lit, professional prints are sitting right there in the gift shop next to you. Yet, almost instinctively, the very first thing we all do is pull out our own cameras to capture the exact same view. Why is that? What is driving that universal urge?
Okay, let's dive right into this idea of capturing the landscape.
When people leave their daily routines behind and set out on a trip, packing a camera is practically a reflex, right? But Choi points out that when travelers finally encounter a breathtaking view, their reactions generally split into two very distinct camps. The first group of people wants to jump right in front of the scenery. They want to preserve their own image directly within it. The second group, however, just wants to photograph the landscape itself, completely empty of people. Let's look at that first group for a second. Choi observes that when we insert our own figure into a photograph, we get this fleeting, almost subconscious feeling that we've somehow conquered the background. By planting ourselves right in front of a majestic mountain, we're visually claiming a piece of it as our own.
But what about that second group? Well, that brings us to the illusion of possession. So, the crucial point here is that this feeling of conquering a space isn't just limited to taking selfies or posing for portraits. What about the people who diligently photograph the landscape all by itself? Why do they do it when, again, those pristine postcards are sitting right there? It actually comes down to a deeply rooted psychological illusion of possession, which is driven by a scientific concept called parallax. Essentially, parallax is the difference in an image created by a difference in viewpoint, and that difference becomes even greater when the object is nearby. Basically, considering your exact position in physical space and that precise moment in time, the world you're seeing at this very second can be seen only by you. The scene is completely unique to your eyes. Choi argues that recognizing this unique viewpoint naturally triggers an intense desire to possess that exact moment. When you hit the shutter and capture it beautifully, the pleasure of that possession is intensely magnified.
But, we really have to acknowledge the elephant in the room here. Does taking pictures actually interfere with true appreciation? There's a really strong case to be made that the mere thought of taking a picture or stressing over the perfect lighting for your social media feed totally distracts us from simply experiencing what's right in front of us. Instead of being present in the majesty of a landscape, you're worrying about framing and angles. And Choi concedes there's for sure truth to this. The camera, in our obsessive quest to possess the view, can ironically block us from truly seeing it.
And that intense drive to possess things takes us to a really surprising pivot in the essay: modern-day conquests.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how Choi moves from the quiet philosophy of travel photography to something much louder and way more aggressive: our innate drive for victory. He groups these seemingly unrelated activities together as parallel expressions of human competitiveness. Think about it. Historically, human instinct found its ultimate expression through winning wars and claiming tangible spoils. But in the modern world, where literal war is thankfully less common in daily life, that deep-seated competitive instinct still needs an outlet. Choi suggests that sports and games have become the socially acceptable arenas for this competitiveness to reveal itself. And, incredibly, so is our urge to capture and possess photographs of our travels. It's the exact same underlying drive for conquest, just manifesting in completely different ways.
But there's a major catch when we channel our conquering spirit into these modern avenues. Unlike historical warfare, where victory resulted in tangible rewards, land, resources, wealth, the victory of a modern sports match offers absolutely none of that to the spectator. It offers only a brief exhilaration. The excitement is incredibly intense, no doubt about it, but it's ultimately fleeting and completely without physical reward.
To really ground this philosophy, we have to look at the World Cup pressure of 2002.
Choi applies this idea directly to the exact time he was writing this piece, February 2002. The World Cup was rapidly approaching, set to be co-hosted by South Korea and Japan, and the enthusiasm surrounding the tournament was just off the charts. Both the government and ordinary citizens were swept up in extraordinary anticipation. It was this massive opportunity to host the world, show off their cultural pride, and totally reshape the national image. However, Choi noted a growing sense of unease with how this national enthusiasm was actually playing out.
He observed that the public had developed this exhausting obsession with reaching the round of 16. Every time even a friendly, non-stakes practice match was played, the public discourse and media chatter sounded as though the entire nation's honor and destiny were hanging in the balance. The sheer weight of this competitiveness, this desperate, collective need to win and possess the victory, was becoming completely overwhelming.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core, heartfelt message of Choi's essay. He writes, "What does it matter if we ourselves do not remain inside the landscape? Sometimes it is enough simply to lose ourselves in its beauty." He is making a direct, impassioned plea right here. Just as we don't always need to force our faces into every photograph to prove we conquered a mountain, we absolutely don't need to turn every cultural event or sporting match into a high-stakes, stressful conquest of national pride.
Which finally brings us to the simple act of enjoying the view.
This perfectly brings our metaphorical arc full circle. Choi seamlessly ties his heavy commentary on the immense pressure of international sports right back to that quiet, initial concept of travel and photography. His ultimate desire was for the nation to allow their athletes to play with lighter hearts. Instead of viewing every single match through this intense lens of possession, desire, and national anxiety, he suggests we should watch the games with the pure, simple delight of a traveler. Imagine a traveler who has finally set down their camera, stopped trying to conquer the view, and simply discovered the freedom of enjoying the magnificent scene unfolding right in front of them. Wouldn't it be wonderful to simply celebrate a magnificent event together just like that?
Which brings us to our final thought for today. The next time you find yourself standing before a gorgeous vista on vacation or sitting on the edge of your seat during a major high-stakes sporting event, ask yourself, are you experiencing the landscape or are you just trying to possess it? It's a powerful reminder to sometimes just put the camera down, let go of the need to conquer, and simply lose yourself in the beauty of the moment. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning and keep exploring.